Hi, how are you doing today? My name is Dennis Whitman. I come from a computer science background with Java programming expertise, but about 15 years ago, I got into informatics, into clinical trials management systems, and then especially into LIMS. So I've been a specialist in implementing, administering, troubleshooting, and doing everything for large LIMS validation and so forth that can be done. So I've seen the life cycle, and I've also worked with both SaaS on-prem and cloud systems. I'm an advocate for empowering super users in LIMS with low and no code tools. And what I mean by that is to give them the tools that you don't need to keep hiring programmers and so forth and have those levels of communication that need to be established when your super users can better express what they're trying to say for the business logic for your templating and so forth. And low and no code tools give users a way to create those that both computers and computer scientists like me can understand and work with. So our agenda today is to talk about deployment models, understanding the differences between the three main vendor offerings, considerations such as security, compliance, cost, and customization, and the scalability differences and so forth. We have a vendor comparison where we're just going to briefly examine some of the major vendors and their deployment offerings. And then we're mostly going to talk about what the implementation strategy for your particular organization needs to consider. So the deployment models, the essentials are basically, let's get some definitions out of the way. And so we have SaaS, we have cloud and on-prem. And the main difference between these is going to be how it's hosted. And with SaaS, we're talking about software as a service. The vendor is going to host it. They're going to manage the application. You're usually going to access it via a web browser. You might have multi-tenant architecture, which means that you are sharing the application server and some of the hardware with other SaaS customers. Now, in a cloud, what you're going to do is to deploy a LIMS. It's a very similar program as the SaaS and the on-prem, but you're going to have control by um, getting a cloud provider such as AWS or Azure and provisioning your own servers or with their help. It is more flexible than SaaS, but it does outsource some of the hardware management. Now, on-prem is the traditional way. You have software installed on your own servers. This gives you just the maximum control over your infrastructure and the data, and you can customize however you want, but it comes with the most maintenance responsibility. You are responsible for basically everything. So each model has a lot of disadvantages, advantages, limitations, and then total cost implementations that do extend far beyond those licensing fees that you're paying initially. So beyond the basics, what do we really mean? It's usually going to be a web-based LIMS accessed via browser, and the vendor is going to handle the updates. It should be transparent whether it's SaaS or not from your user's point of view, but from your administrators and some of your IT people's point of view, it's going to be very different. The main difference here is you don't control the servers or install the software locally. With cloud or on-prem, you have a level of control over those systems. So with SaaS, it might even be something as simple as a restart. You might need to contact the vendor in order to restart the system if it gets stuck. A common misconception about SaaS is that clients do assume that they don't really need to do anything for the validation or management. It's definitely not accurate. The vendor will work with you and will provide you with a package, a validation package, depending on what you've worked out with them. But you need to fit that validation package in with your particular compliance and validation system. So they might handle some infrastructure qualification, but you're basically, in general, responsible for the user acceptance testing and the compliance documentation, especially with anything that's not out of the box. So any of your particular customizations and so forth, you probably do need to show that they work with upgrades, that the features work as expected and don't have side effects and so forth. Just because you're on SaaS doesn't mean those needs go away. So the pros and the cons.